Bhakta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajakaचार्य Ashtotra Sutta Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna 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 Vikasa Swami Namo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namo Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharani Nirvishesha Shunyavati Pācchāti Deshikāne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, titled Appearance of Lord Varaha, Text 10. etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyā apramattair gṛhyeta sa-ādaram gata-matsaraiḥ etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ. Please repeat. etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ. etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ. etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ. etāvaty
etāvatyātmajair vīra
etāvatyātmajair vīra
kāryā apacitir gurau
kāryā apacitir gurau
śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta
śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta
sādaraṁ
sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ
etāvatyātmajair vīra
ātmajair vīra
kāryā apacitir gurau
apacitir gurau
śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta
śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta
sādaraṁ
gata-matsaraiḥ Mataji etāvatyātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ. Okay, word to word. etāvaty. Just like this. ātmajaiḥ. By the offspring. Vīra. Oh hero. Kāryā should be performed. He certainly. Apacitir worship. Gurau unto the superior. Śaktyā with full capacity. Apramattaiḥ by the sane. Gṛhyeta should be accepted. Sa-ādaram with great delight. Gata-matsaraiḥ by those who are beyond the limit of envy. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O hero, your example is quite befitting a son in relationship with his father. This sort of adoration for the superior is required. One who is beyond the limit of envy and who is sane accepts the order of his father with great delight and executes it to his full capacity. Purport. When the four previous sons of Brahma, the sages Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana and Sanat Kumar, refused to obey their father, Brahma was mortified and his anger was manifested in the shape of Rudra. That incident was not forgotten by Brahma, and therefore the obedience of Manu Swayambhuva was very encouraging. From the material point of view, the four sages' disobedience to the order of their father was certainly abominable. But because such disobedience was for a higher purpose, they were free from the reaction of disobedience. Those who disobey their fathers on material grounds, however, are surely subjected to disciplinary reaction for such disobedience. Manu's obedience to his father on material grounds was certainly free from envy. And in the material world, it is imperative for ordinary men to follow the example of Manu. I'm going to do the next verse too, because it's very related. Sattvam asyam patyani sadrishanyatmano gunaihi utpadya sādaraṁ kāryā puruṣam yaja. Since you are my very obedient son, I ask you to beget children qualified like yourself in the womb of your wife. Rule the world. In Purana it is stated, Varnashramacāravata puruṣena parah puman Vishnu āradyate pantha nānyatattosha kāranam. One can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu by proper discharge of the principles of Varna and Ashrama. There is no alternative to pacifying the Lord by execution of the principles. Institution for advancing in worship of Vishnu. However, if one directly engages in the process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it may not be necessary to undergo the disciplinary system of Varnashrama Dharma. The other sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, directly engaged in devotional service, and thus they had no need to execute the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Prave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Satantikam Vandeham Shri Gurau Shri Udapatakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagana Raghunathamitam Tam Srivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalitha Shri Vishakhantam Chak Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudivage Yaswanubhavam Akila Shruti Saramekam Adhyatma Devam Atitirashatam Tamondam Samsarinam Karunayam Purana Guhyam Tam Vyasa Sunam Upayam Gurum Muninam Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Mande Balopiyatat Anugrahatare Nanamatagraha Vyaptam Siddhanta Sādaraṁ Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare etāvaty ātmajair vīra kāryā apacitir gurau śaktyāpramattair gṛhyeta sādaraṁ gata-matsaraiḥ. O hero, your example is quite befitting a son in relationship with his father. This sort of adoration of the superior is required. One who is beyond the limit of envy and who is sane accepts the order of his father with great delight and executes it to his full capacity. So, here Brahma has a responsibility. He has been created by the Supreme Lord and is known as the creator. Brahma, the creator, secondary creator. Why? Because he has to create the material universe and he has to populate it. So creating the material universe doesn't just involve creating the buildings or creating the planets or whatever that may be, but it also involves populating the universe with all different kinds of living entities. The entire 8.4 million species of life has to be populated. So Brahma has this duty, and for this purpose he begets the 4 Kumaras, and the 4 Kumaras refuse. So there is so the 4 Kumaras refuse. Brahma gets mortified. He's shocked. How could they? How dare you? And he's so angry that Rudra manifests. Supreme anger takes a personification and manifests as Rudradev. So then, when Swayambhuva Manu comes, you can see here, right, Brahma is an exalted personality, pure devotee. But he has PTSD from what the 4 Kumaras did. He's still in shock. Like, now Swayambhuva Manu came. What if he decides to also leave, you know? So, this is very interesting little pastime here. That Swayambhuva Manu hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't done anything. Right? He's about to approach. But Brahma is already he's already thinking of what happened in the past and is still in shock of it. And Swayambhuva Manu does the right thing. He asks Brahma, he says, I've been created by you, so please instruct me, you're my father, tell me what to do. So Brahma becomes very happy. Okay. So this is very, so there are 2 things here. One is the actions of the Kumaras and the other is the actions of Manu. So, Brahma has a responsibility and needs to execute it. And why? Because this is his service. This is his identity. If he doesn't, if Brahma doesn't create, he's going to displease the Supreme Personality of God. In fact, he cannot even exist. He's even for Brahma to maintain his constitutional position, he must create. This is required of him. This is just like we all have different bodies. There are different requirements for us to maintain ourselves. Brahma, in order to maintain himself, in order to keep his life going, he has to create. It must happen. So, Brahma has to do this. And he begets the 4 Kumaras, and they're his sons. So, they're under him, and they refuse. And Brahma becomes shocked. And why? Because anybody who's having a certain task to do and is dependent upon others to execute that task, because they have been given this task by the Supreme Lord, that they have to create these other living entities and engage them in the mission of the Supreme Lord to create this material world. And so this is the difficulty that those in positions of responsibility face when they have to engage and inspire others to do the same thing or do what they have been given to do. And Kumaras refuse. How can the Kumaras refuse? So, the Kumaras, they refuse because they don't follow Varnashrama. They are above Varnashrama. And they refuse because they know this, following all of this and creating this material world, this is all ultimately Maya. And we don't want to have anything to do with this. So they refuse. And Brahma is mortified. We'll get to that. So, we'll get to that point. How does the Kumaras, we'll start with this and then the class will end with this also. How can the Kumaras refuse Brahma and not be subjected to the reality? Brahma is a exalted devotee. He is the son of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, directly the son. He's your father and he's also a Vaishnava and he's the Acharya. So he's everything and you're going to offend him. And he's mortified. He's still offended. It's clear that he was offended by the actions of the Sanat Kumaras. But it's very clear that they didn't have a reaction for their disobedience. How can we understand this? Yeah.
Because Krishna is above Brahma. They're impersonalists, but that Brahman platform is higher than...
It is higher, okay, but how do we know that they are on that platform? It's in the next verse, the purport that we read.
They offer their life to everything.
What does that mean? Huh? They were engaged in direct devotional service, okay, but there is a certain point that Srila Prabhupada makes as a difference.
They were acting out of their own personal duty.
No. Those who take the license of married life for sense enjoyment must also take the responsibility to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. They were Naishtika brahmacharis who had no chance of fall down. That is the qualification to transcend the Varnashrama system. If there is even a slight chance or risk of someone falling down, it is safer to follow the codes of Varnashrama Dharma. This is a very, very... Therefore, within our movement, even brahmacharis and sannyasis should follow some regulation. You can't just do whatever you like. The Sanat Kumar was so powerful that they did not age beyond the age of 5. This is how powerful they were. They prevented themselves from developing the ability to have sex. That's how strong their tapasya was. This is the category of, what does it mean? It's the Sanat Kumaras, they play the pastime of being impersonalists and then becoming devotees. But we understand from these purports that we can also see them as devotees themselves. Because Prabhupada says that those Sanat Kumaras engaged in direct devotional service. And they are also the acharyas of one of the sampradayas. Right? Sanat Kumaras are one of the founder acharyas of one of the sampradayas. So, therefore, from this we can understand that they had tīvra bhakti of a whole other level. So, Varnashrama Dharma is required for aspiring devotees. Quoting from Srila Prabhupada, this is quoted in the Moodin Mission, volume 2. Varnashrama Dharma should be established to become a Vaishnava. It is not so easy to become a Vaishnava. If to become a Vaishnava is so easy, why so many fall downs? So that is the point, that the Sanat Kumaras, they have no risk of falling down. They are above that. So, Srila Prabhupada is also above falling down. He cannot fall down. He is on that platform. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, when he wanted to preach Krishna consciousness, his senior godbrothers had certain ideas about or opinions of his ideas of preaching Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada would refuse to accept his senior godbrothers. In fact, his senior godbrothers, some of them were upset that Srila Prabhupada was not showing due respect to them because they were far more senior to him. But Srila Prabhupada could disagree with such senior god siblings because he wasn't dependent on them. He wasn't dependent on them. Srila Prabhupada didn't have to listen to his senior godbrothers. Quoting from volume 1 of the Mood and Mission of Srila Prabhupada, despite having lived through the turmoil of the Gaudiya Math infighting, Srila Prabhupada never became disheartened or lost his drive to preach. Avoiding the blame game of dwelling on the faults of others, he sought to find how he could best serve his Guru Maharaj's mission with or without the help of his godbrothers. This is someone who is independent. Srila Prabhupada showed by practical example that he could go to any part of this world and not only be Krishna conscious, he will make people around him Krishna conscious. That is the position of someone who doesn't have to give a fig about any of the rules of this material world, including varnashrama dharma. He doesn't have to. Srila Prabhupada had Jadurani Mataji paint in his room and it was just him and Jadurani Mataji and painting. So Jadurani Mataji at the time was a very young woman, just in her 20s and learning to paint. And Srila Prabhupada has her in his room in New York during the early days. Not something a sannyasi should do. Not within the codes of varnashrama dharma. Srila Prabhupada himself, he advised his sannyasi disciples to not do anything like this. And Srila Prabhupada himself later refused to be alone with Matajis in a room. He always wanted his servant. In fact, one of the instructions he gave to Harishauri Prabhu was that your main duty is to always be with me. Always be with me. This is duty of the servant. The servant, I remember when we were serving Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, sometimes what will happen, he's walking and suddenly two Matajis would come, stand next to him, and then somebody would ask to take a photo and Maharaj would stop. So it was the duty of the servant or the secretary to immediately barge into the photo and stand right there. Because it's all happening real quick. And Maharaj shouldn't even be left alone to even with a photo with just him and women. Even though it's obvious it's kind of like a public place. But it's that strict for sannyasis. But Srila Prabhupada didn't. Now that because Srila Prabhupada, and here Prabhupada gives, once when commenting on the word enthusiasm, utsaha, as it is used in Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, Srila Prabhupada gave himself as an example. How could I have come to America at such an old age unless I was enthusiastic? Srila Prabhupada came by himself. He was alone. He had no. He was with Mayavadis initially. Dr. Mishra was a Mayavadi. And that's who he was with. Prabhupada didn't become a Mayavadi. Dr. Mishra was influenced actually by Srila Prabhupada. Not that Prabhupada was such a strong personality. On another occasion, a New York Times journalist put to Srila Prabhupada a pertinent query. Can you really expect to change the whole society? Many people have tried to change the world, but we see that they have failed. Many people have tried to see God, but they do not succeed. In reply, Srila Prabhupada alluded to the kind of determination needed to attain God and transform the world. That is because their purpose is not strong. So this is very intense purpose that Srila Prabhupada had to please his Guru Maharaj, and that kind of enthusiasm that he could not be shaken. What is that? Gurunapi vichalyate. How does it begin? Yasmin sthitona dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Yasmin sthitona dukkhena. In any amount of distress, whatever it may be, gurunapi vichalyate. They will not be diverted. So, apparently, may seem that, Srila Prabhupada may be making his god siblings upset, had him have so many difficulties in New York. People could say all kinds of things. Prabhupada was experiencing reactions. But Guru Napi Vichalyate. He was determined. He no amount of misery, no amount of difficulty could budge him in his resolute determination to serve his Guru Maharaj. The same thing with the Sanat Kumaras. Whatever be the reaction for this displeasure, we will experience that, go through it, and still stay on our path. This is not possible for the ordinary person. It's very difficult. We become shaken. Something goes wrong in our life, immediately we become very disturbed. We expect conditions to be conducive. We want it to be conducive. We are dependent on it being conducive. And those conditions are the conditions of the material world. So you have to follow the rules of the material world. When you want to make conditions right, you have to follow the laws. If you want to cook, you have to make the conditions right for cooking. That means there has to be a certain temperature, you need to have gas or electric or whatever. And if you want to cook, the temperature has to be right. If it's too low, it's not going to cook. If it's too high, it's going to burn. And who determines whether it's too high or too low? The laws of material nature, which are set by Krishna. Now, if you're renounced, you don't care. You don't have to worry. But that's not us. That's Srila Prabhupada. How much determination, what kind of a personality he must have been to have come from India at that ripe old age, from Vrindavan, and to go to Sally Agarwal's house and share the refrigerator with meat in it and not be disturbed by that. Takes a lot. Takes a lot. So this is the category. That's when we're able to come like that. Now, going to this other side, now going to Swayambhuva Manu. See, Brahma is mortified and he's upset. And Swayambhuva Manu is dependent on Brahma. He is not willing to throw everything up in the air and just walk away like the Sanat Kumaras. Where are they walking to? What is there? When Brahma created the Sanat Kumaras, what was there in the universe? Nothing. There was literally nothing. And the Sanat Kumaras walk into that, which means it's wilderness on a whole other level. But Swayambhuva Manu has his wife, Shatarupa. He can't just go anywhere. Now, Brahma is the father. He is the provider. He is responsible. He is maintaining them. So it behooves Swayambhuva Manu to follow Brahma. Even though Swayambhuva Manu could be thinking, why is Brahma having this preconceived idea before I even approach him? Like Brahma is already having this. And sometimes that happens to us. Either because of our own past actions or because of somebody else's actions. When we approach someone, they already have some ideas. And we may not feel deserving of that. We may feel undeserving of those kind of opinions. But Swayambhuva Manu didn't, first of all, he was intelligent enough to understand where Brahma was. Oh, my elder brothers did not obey. When I go to Brahma, I better behave. Because he's already experienced it once, and if I don't behave, I'm going to face the heat or whatever. This is intelligence. It has nothing to do. Why does he have to associate that with me? I'm another son. No. I am dependent on Brahma right now. If I was as advanced that I could just renounce and go and sustain my life by myself, it's another story altogether. And that either is a decision of great self-realization, somebody who's very advanced can make that kind of decision, or somebody who's extremely foolish. That they unnecessarily agitate those whom they are dependent on without realizing that they are dependent on them, and upset them and screw their life over. So, in that sense, Swayambhuva Manu did not become disappointed in any way. He didn't become disappointed. He didn't become disappointed that he has to do something that his elder brothers considered a useless waste of time, basically. Why? Because he understood his position. And he was willing to take guidance from someone who's capable of giving guidance, because Brahma is qualified. Brahma is not... See, Swayambhuva Manu didn't try to denigrate the position of Brahma. He didn't try to dwell on the faults of Brahma. He saw that Brahma was qualified, at least in the sense that he was responsible, he is doing his service, and he is maintaining us. Therefore, it is my duty to obey him. And in this sense, it's also important to look at Brahma, that it's natural when someone has been mortified or deeply affected by something, it's going to stay in their mind because they are persons. In this story, in this regard, there's a famous story from the Aesop's fable. Is that how it's pronounced? Aesop's fable. Okay. Aesop's fable of the lazy shepherd boy. So there was a boy who was a lazy shepherd, and he was bored. So he decided to cry out, "Wolf, wolf, wolf," and the residents of the village, thinking that the wolf had come, and it all came out, only to realize that this boy was just lying. And he did that more than once. Eventually, people just thought he was just a liar, because now he's got a title that you are a liar. And people have lost trust in him. And when actually there's a wolf, he cries wolf and nobody cares. And the wolf, eats the sheep or whatever. And like this. So, when trust is lost, naturally there is going to be some inhibition. And although Swayambhuva Manu had nothing to do with what the Sanat Kumaras did, Brahma is starting to doubt sons in general after what Sanat Kumaras did. Because it wasn't one, all four of them did it. So it affected Brahma. That much Swayambhuva Manu could get into the detail. Why is Brahma getting affected? Why is he so attached? Why can't he depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Why does he have to associate this with me? No. The fact is, Brahma is mortified. I am his son. And recognizing Brahma's reason to be mortified as something that he naturally will feel mortified, because he has to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's not able to do so because his sons did this. So, accepting the situation and accepting the fact, yes, I was born after the Sanat Kumaras because this is my fate. And therefore I deserve it. And I'm not going to make a thing out of it. I accept my position and I move on, even though I may feel undeserving of it. So in this regard, in Narada Bhakti Sutra, in the introduction, Satsarup Maharaj writes very nicely, one particular statement that attracted me was his reference to enthusiasm in bhakti. Commenting on Sutra 5, Srila Prabhupada compared enthusiasm to a powerful engine that has to be used properly. He wrote, "If, however, one becomes disappointed in his enthusiasm for serving the Supreme Lord, that disappointment must also be rejected. As a neophyte devotee, I was well aware of the danger of depression, which we sometimes refer to in ISKCON as being fried." So Swayambhuva Manu could have been fried. What the heck? But he didn't get fried. But as a serious practitioner restrains his tongue and other senses, So one should not indulge in too much depression or disappointment. It was comforting to hear this from Srila Prabhupada and gain conviction that it is within our control. We are not helpless before the unlimited waves of depression. And the next line is very nice. One simply has to follow the rules and regulations patiently. Quote, this is from Srila Prabhupada's words in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, text 5. So that the day will come when he will achieve all of a sudden all the perfection of devotional service. So, Srila Prabhupada, he gives this so that we can understand, because when you have to follow Varnashram Dharma, there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be difficulties. There are going to be misunderstandings. There's all these kind of things because you're within the realm of material world. It will be there. And we want to get away from it, but we can't. Because we're not qualified to get away from it. We are dependent on the people with whom we live. The wife is dependent on the husband. The husband also is dependent on the wife in another way. And the children are dependent upon the parents. The juniors are dependent upon the seniors. The seniors are dependent upon their seniors, such as the guru or other senior devotees. And those who are working, they're dependent on the boss. And you have to talk, because we're not renounced. We can't just throw everything and until we come to that platform. And how is that platform achieved? That platform is achieved when one has gained that level of taste for Krishna. And we have to develop that taste. But if in the process of developing that, when we are so dependent on circumstances, we throw caution to the wind because of infighting, disagreements, and all kinds of things, then what happens? You screw your own devotional life. This is what happens. Because then when the offenses or whatever it may be, even if nobody is offended, but you just leave the association, or for whatever reason, you become heavily, it starts to get to you. Devotees like Srila Prabhupada would never become disturbed. Or even that disturbance is not something that would affect their determination or enthusiasm to serve their guru. It's a whole other level of being fixed up. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, text 4, 1934. My dear king, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments. Kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of materialistic thought. So, what happens is, if instead of accepting these reversals, just like, see, if Swayambhuva Manu had tried to attempt to fix Brahma's mortification as a precondition before he surrendered unto Brahma, or that he viewed Brahma's being mortified by his son's disobedience as an anartha or as a fault, and he tries to fix that, it's just, you just get pushed into Tamagun. Because Swayambhuva Manu is dependent on Brahma. And so when we try to fix, sometimes you can't fix certain things, and you have to accept it. It may be difficult. It may not be easy. Swayambhuva Manu, the task he has to take is not easy. It is a task that involves difficulty. It is a task that is not pleasurable. But he has to do it. And but if he tries to rectify the reversals without understanding how to deal with this in a Krishna conscious way, what happens? You become, you enter into the darkest regions of materialistic thought. Materialistic thought. And this is the victim mentality. This verse exactly is the victim mentality. I am the victim. I am not deserving of what I'm going through because of my own karma, but I am the victim. How can I deserve this? How can this happen to me? How can I have such people around me? Why do I have to do this when so and so person is like that? It never ends. You just end into this deepest, darkest region of materialistic thought, and it just goes on and on and on and on, and you just become a really miserable loner. And so, Prabhupada says here, sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential, although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy. One should avoid countering such reversals, for the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. We should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. So, okay, now let me keep going on. I'll just continue reading more quotes. Okay, this is Yamaraj speaking to the queens, and Hiranyakashipu is relating the story. As long as the spirit soul is covered by the subtle body consisting of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, he is bound to the results of his fruitive activities. Because of this covering, the spirit soul is connected with the material energy and must accordingly suffer material conditions and reversals continually, life after life. As long as we are connected to the subtle body, there will be reversals. There will be things that are not going to go well. And what do we need to do? We need to prevent the situation from getting out of hand by our own attempts to try to create utopia which only exists within our mind because we think we are undeserving of something. And by doing so, we make the conditions very difficult for us to practice Krishna consciousness. We develop an offensive mentality towards those who are around us. We start to become very critical. And what is all of this? It's all against the principles of varnashram dharma. And varnashram dharma is meant to prevent exactly this. Is some kind of order, it's not going to be perfect. It's not expected to be perfect. We'll go more into this. Okay, Bhagavatam 4:26, 21. Okay. Now, this is very nice. So this is Puranjana, King Puranjana's story. Prabhupada writes here that, in the same way, when a person is punished by the laws of nature, by the will of God, he should not be disturbed. A real devotee thinks in this way. When a devotee is put into an awkward position, he takes it as the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Tattenu kampam sushamikshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vavubhir vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti padesadaya bhak. This verse states that the devotee accepts a reversal in his position in life as a benediction of the Lord and consequently offers the Lord more obeisances and prayers, thinking that the punishment is due to his past misdeeds, and the Lord is punishing him very kindly. The punishment awarded by the state or by God for one's own faults is actually for one's benefit. In the Manu Samhita, it is said that the king should be considered merciful when he condemns a murderer to death, because the murderer is punished a murderer punished in this life becomes freed from his sinful activity, and in the next life takes birth cleared of all sins. Last line of this purport is very instructive. If one accepts punishment as a reward dealt by the master, he becomes intelligent enough not to commit the same mistake again. Very, very, very important line. How will you not commit the same mistake? How can one overcome one's anarthas? When one accepts the punishment that one gets to rectify such anarthas, which are extremely unpleasant, they are very difficult for us to deal with. We do not like them because it literally flies in the face of who we think ourselves as and who we would like to be. But when we accept that as a reward, yes, this is blessing. This is for my benefit. Then he transcends that. He transcends that problem. When he thinks, no, I will stop being like this when the other person stops being like that, or when the conditions are, you will never go, you will never stop. It will never go away. It will never go. This last line, sometimes I think I want to take these kind of things and stick it on the wall in my room or something like that. It's like, whoa. Such profound, these are the things that you can find these gems in the ocean of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhaktivedanta purports of Srila Prabhupada, and dive in there and find these pearls and bring them out and then store them and keep them in one's room as these pearls. They're extremely valuable. They can save us. It's like when one is in great poverty and great distress, you take that pearl. Immediately your distress is gone because you got wealth. So these pearls, these amazing nectarian instructions are like that. They can, and just like some of these gems, they give light. Even in darkness, these pearls can give us light. If we can become astute enough to dig these gems from the Bhaktivedanta purport and keep them very dear to our heart, they will give us light in times of darkness. So then, I will read from, so now going to Manu's position. All right. So, I don't know how much time I'm going to have. Okay. How do I do a find here? Find on page. So, this. Yes. Okay. Is visible? Okay. So Prabhupada says, so this is the simplest method. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended, Kalau nastyeva 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 gatir anyatha. This is from a lecture in May 7, 1968 in Boston. In this age is called Kali. Kali means age of disagreement. What does Kali mean? Kali means the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Prabhupada uses another word. Age of disagreement. You just disagree. All the time I disagree. I disagree. Kali Yuga. Nobody agrees. I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me. I quarrel with you, you quarrel with me. Everyone thinks he's independent, he's God or he's everything. But he is dependent in every step. But still, he is proud of becoming God. So these nonsense things are going on. So, that's the problem. We don't understand we are dependent. And because we don't understand, we are dependent on the fellow Vaishnavas, we're dependent on the instructions of Guru, Sadhu, and I disagree. I don't agree with Prabhupada. Who the hell are you? This is very dangerous because we don't understand. Okay, we may not understand, but this attitude of thinking that we are allowed to disagree on the face, this is really Kali Yuga because it's very disrespectful. It's very disrespectful, but it's Kali Yuga. Everybody does it. That's what Sanat Kumaras did to Brahma, and Brahma is mortified. It's another thing where if you were to try to take the austerity, because it's austere, because you're convinced about something, and you don't agree with the other person, but you cannot be disrespectful, so you have to take the trouble to approach this in a respectful way, which sometimes, if you approach in that respectful way, you might get defeated. And I don't want to get defeated. I want to do what I want to do. So, I disagree. And just cause quarrel. Srimad Bhagavatam in another class, Srila Prabhupada says, this is in Tokyo. Let's see. Okay. Find on page. Okay. So, Satya Yuga means the age of truthfulness. Should I make it bigger? Oh, I won't make it bigger. I'm sorry, this is an iPad, so this is it. So, Satya Yuga means the age of truthfulness. Satya means truthfulness, and Kali Yuga means age of disagreement, the age of disagreement. So, at the present moment, we are in Kali Yuga. Everyone disagrees with the other. Even the so-called disciple disagrees with the spiritual master. This is the influence of Kali Yuga. One becomes disciple of a spiritual master, then he whimsically disagrees. So, why, if you disagree, why should you accept someone as a spiritual master? That is not very good. That is not very good. That is not the way of being successful. We are chanting every day that Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadaha. By satisfying the spiritual master, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yasya Prasadat, by the satisfaction of the spiritual master. Then, Srila Prabhupada says, I'm going to go further down. So, in Kali Yuga, why there should be? In Kali Yuga, even with the spiritual master, there is disagreement. That is due to the influence of Kali. That is my point. This is amazing. In Kali Yuga, the disciple disagrees with the spiritual master. Unimaginable in previous ages. In a room conversation with, if there is no fight. Okay. So, Chanakya Pandit says, in another place, Dampatyoho kalaho nasti tatta Shri Swayam Agataha. If there is no fight and disagreement between husband and wife, in that home, the goddess of fortune automatically comes. What is goddess? Goddess of fortune doesn't only mean wealth. Goddess of fortune refers to everything auspicious. With Shri, goddess of fortune, comes everything. There is beauty, there is opulence, there is auspiciousness, happiness, all these corollary things come. And they haven't got to search out where is the goddess of fortune. She will come automatically. So now that is lacking. In most cases, the husband and wife does not agree. And the other day, I was reading in a paper that one woman in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Jayatirtha in 2 weeks, she has divorced 2 husbands. And when the press reporters asked her, she replied, yes, it was a mistake. And still they want to be equal with man. She commits mistake twice in 2 weeks. And still she claims to be equal with man. So we have, anyway, so that, the point, this is how degraded, the point is in Kali Yuga, people don't want to accept who they are and their position. They won't accept. Oh, you're so dumb that you divorced 2 husbands in 2 weeks. How miserable. But I will not accept. I'm puffed up. I'll marry the 3rd fellow and disagree. What is the point? The point is, those who are dependent, they should understand everybody is actually dependent on some level. Even Brahma is dependent on the Supreme Lord. Everybody needs to understand who they are dependent on and be humble towards that personality and cooperate, not quarrel. Otherwise, it's just, who's the boss? Nobody's the boss. And they're just fighting. That's it. There is no structure, there is no organization, nothing. So, yes, and it also behooves those who are senior to understand that just like Brahma, what is he doing? Okay, so I am woman. Right, okay. Come on, go and do this. No, he praises Swayambhuva Manu for him agreeing to cooperate with him. Yes, this is wonderful. And that's the beauty of the Varnashram system, is that by acting properly, you help others act properly. You bring out the good qualities. The whole varnashram system is meant to bring out the good qualities, the good nature. But what happens when we fight? I bring out my bad qualities and I help bring out the bad qualities of the other person. And then the fault finding just keeps going on and on and on. And then everybody is so scarred and everybody is so traumatized and everybody is, and there's no end to this crap, and we'll never move forward as a mission. We'll never move forward because we're so scarred. We're so burned out with each other. Because we don't act like devotees, we act like demons. And I'm going to take the liberty of going on a little bit. Okay. This is a letter. This is a very, very interesting letter. This is in 1972 to Mrs. Sarna's daughters. So basically, Sarna is a person, is a man, and he has daughters. So, written from Los Angeles. Okay. Looking at this. Please accept my blessings. I understand you have all of a sudden gone to Bombay without the permission of your parents. Let me try to see if I can blow this up more. Yes. Okay. I understand that you all have all of a sudden gone to Bombay without the permission of your parents. So your father called me on the phone this morning. I could not attend, but I was informed by Shyam Sundar that it is something about you. Anyway, take my advice that women, girls, until married, must be under the guidance and protection of the father. Excuse me. That is Vedic civilization. Under the circumstances, I request you both to go back to your father immediately. If there is any disagreement, you can settle it up personally, but you cannot disobey your father. This is Srila Prabhupada telling them. And then, this is amazing. The Nairobi temple is there. They flew all the way from Africa without telling their parents. His two daughters, Indians, they left their parents and flew from Nairobi, Africa to Mumbai. You can attend all the Aarti and Kirtans there and assist if the deity worship is going on. There is no difficulty. It is not good if there is family disturbance in this way. So the best thing is you shall go there at once and live peacefully and always think of Krishna under all circumstances. This is Srila Prabhupada as a guru determining who is dependent on who. And determining that these girls, this is very interesting because Srila Prabhupada has brahmacharinis who have done the same thing in America. But the father wasn't, they were not in a protected situation. But this is different in the case of Sarna's daughters. Sarna was a proper qualified, he might have not been a pure devotee. And what he is engaging his daughters in is not direct temple devotional service. Right? If you come to the temple, you only, but Prabhupada didn't have any, he wouldn't have it. I was like, no, you are dependent on your father. And you're not just going to flout the system and run away. So understand your position, stop disobeying, stop disagreeing. If there is any disagreement, settle it up, but you cannot disobey. It means you cannot disobey. You disagree and settle it up. You can't disobey. You can't, No, you can't do that. And what's really interesting is typically because they have a question. So this is the title of this is Basic Principle at Work, Obedient. How to adjust things to time and circumstances. Why? Mr. Sarna, Indian girls. Okay? Now, here there is a question. Because right after this, there is a question being asked and it's being noted down. You told me, I'll go here because it's hard to read there. You told me the story once of a faithful wife who, despite the many offenses of her husband, who regularly went to a prostitute, she served him so perfectly that eventually his heart was changed and he became a great devotee due to her steadfast obedience. Now, what if the husband of one of our devotees orders his wife to cook him some meat? Would the wife, by obeying him, be serving him rightly? Prabhupada, he becomes upset. Why do you bring that story? Prabhupada, when he gets upset, why do you bring this? It's ridiculous. Why do you bring this story? That was in a different age, not practical for now. If a devotee is ordered to cook meat, she must immediately go away. What does it mean? It means that the person who's protecting has to be qualified. But you can't reject that qualification on whimsical grounds. Just like Sarna's daughters rejected Sarna. He must have been a businessman in Kenya, Nairobi, Indian. And his daughters rejected him, but they couldn't. Because he was willing to protect. He was living a pious life. Might have not been pure devotional service, but pious. And that has to be respected. This is Varnashram Dharma. So, there are some quotes I had pulled out from Shastra about the benedictions of serving the father, the guru, the bull. So, in Mahabharata, Anushasana Parva, it is said, serving parents is said to bestow long life, fame, and prosperity, and cleanse sins, as pleasing the father ensures divine favor. The father is pious. This is what happens. Now, okay, we as devotees may have not had parents that we can listen to, but once we are devotees, now we are following Varnashram, we have to understand these things. And we have to train the other generation, the next generation on these things. And we should educate. So, fulfillment of desires. In the Ramayana, Rama's adherence to his father's command results in his victory over Ravana. Rama's obedience to Dasharatha says that serving the father leads to ultimate triumph and divine protection. So then, similarly, when Bhishma decides to to please Shantanu, his father, Bhishma decides to take a vow of celibacy. So then, Shantanu, that earns him the boon of Ichcha Mrityu, death at will, from his father and divine beings, along with eternal fame as a paragon of dharma. This shows that extraordinary filial devotion can grant supernatural boons and immortality in legacy. Means through fame, not immortality in the perfect sense, but like that. And in the Skanda Purana, there's a story of Shravan Kumar. So there's a story as to why Dasharatha was cursed to die without his son. The background story about that. And so there's this boy, Shravan Kumar, who was so devoted to his blind parents. And his blind and unable parents, and they wanted to go, in their old days, they wanted to go on pilgrimage. So Shravan Kumar, being an able-bodied young man, would carry his parents on a I don't know what they call it, but like a balance. So you have a bamboo pole, and you hang, like I don't know what you call it, something, and then the parents sit on it. The parents were not able to. He probably hung 2 baskets. The parents sat in it, and he would travel like this. So once what happens, he goes to the Ganga or the river or something like this, and he goes to fetch water, but Dasharatha, when hunting, accidentally kills the Shravan Kumar. Dasharatha accidentally kills this boy. He accidentally kills this boy on a hunting expedition. And assuming probably mistaken him to be an animal or something like this. And then the parents die thinking of their child. The child is actually more advanced than the parents themselves. And through that, the parents actually attain the higher realm, just by thinking of their son, because their son was such a noble person. And so the benediction of a good son earns great benefit for the parents, because the parents, they become benefited by having a son like that, and it elevates them. Then with Guru, it's obvious, serving the Guru, one gets material and spiritual benefits. And in the Atharva Veda, Mundaka Upanishad, serving the Guru leads to liberation from the cycle of birth and death and Brahma Vidya. What is the verse? Tasmad Gurum Prapadyete Jigyashu Shreya Uttamam Sabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmanyupa Samashitaha. So in the Mahabharata Adi Parva, Kacha's devotional service to Brihaspati, we read that story in the Varnashrama college class just recently. There it shows how when the disciple serves the Guru, he gains extraordinary knowledge and success in missions that are even impossible to achieve. Here's a person who belongs to the demigods, supposed to go and learn this art from his Guru, Shukracharya. And amazingly, he manages to learn it because of his devotion to his Guru. Very obedient to his Guru. After years and years, 1,000 years of the celestial demigods, he manages to gain what he wanted to. Okay. In the Guru Gita from the Skanda Purana, it is stated that by the grace of the Guru, all obstacles are removed and the disciple attains peace and divine vision. Service like offering food, shelter, and obedience to the Guru brings these blessings. The bull, I'm going to end soon. The bull, destruction of sins and attainment of heaven. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that he who every day gives a handful of grass to a bull has all of his sins destroyed and he obtains heaven eternally. Eternally means up till the time of destruction. Offering grass or food is to the bulls is a simple act that cleanses sins and ensures a place in the higher realms. Merit equivalent to worshipping Brahmanas. In the same chapter in the Padma Purana, it is said, as a Brahmana is, so is a bull. The fruit of worship of both is the same. So, by worshipping bulls with flowers, oil, circumambulation yields the spiritual merit comparable to honoring Brahmanas, leading to divine blessings and purification. Again, in the Padma Purana, it advises providing comfortable shelter and not overworking bulls, oxen also, stating that such care ensures prosperity and averts sins equivalent to killing myriad bulls. Proper treatment of bulls brings material abundance and divine protection. So why are we reading all of this? The point is, by following Varnashrama Dharma, one gains the blessings to create a conducive environment where one can practice Krishna consciousness. And then, Krishna willing, a devotee is sincere enough to use that kind of a conducive environment to remain fixed on the path of pure devotional service, not get diverted by all these material benedictions, but rather use that comfortable situation to develop taste in Krishna consciousness without becoming too disturbed. And by developing that taste towards, as he progresses in life, as he becomes more and more advanced, he can give up everything and at the time of death be focused on Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. And end. This is the process of how Varnashrama Dharma, within the process of Bhagavata Dharma, Bhagavad Dharma, Varnashrama Dharma is the same thing. But in pure devotional service, this Varnashrama Dharma is used as a Yukta Vairagya principle, whereby dovetailing Varnashrama, we aim towards pure devotional service, ultimately to transcend Varnashrama altogether. But we have to get to that point. And to get to that point, Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. To get that higher taste, if you're too it's very hard to get that higher taste. Unless one is so determined that one will not be disturbed at all costs. So, again, the Varnashrama system, if you see within the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, you will find that there is more emphasis on following the ashrama principles than varnas. Why? Because the ashrama principles are called spiritual orders. The others are social orders. The spiritual orders are meant to help you be spiritual. That's why they're called spiritual orders. You give up that, it's hard to be spiritual. So that's the point about ashram rules, is that being brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, the rules there. These are meant to help us be spiritual. So, finally, because of this, Krishna says very nicely in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 20. Anybody remembers? This is ends with astita janakādayaḥ loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartum arhati karmanyaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakādayaḥ loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. Kings such as Janaka attain perfection solely by the performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Hare Krishna. I'll end there. Any questions or comments? Please feel free to ask. Yes, Avaduta Chandra Prabhu.
Prabhu, is Swayambhuva Manu the author of Manu Samhita?
Yeah.
I've heard Mukunda Datta Prabhu say that devotees
It could be
should-
another Manu. Huh?
I've heard Mukunda Datta Prabhu mention that like he suggests devotees like read the Manu Samhita, and Prabhupada mentions like certain parts of it, but what's your opinion on like
So the Manu
learning
Samhita
stuff?
can be read, but it should be read after. What my Guru Maharaj says is that it should be read. These kind of books, or approaching these kind of books, can be read after one is read all of Srila Prabhupada's books thrice. Because there are things in the Manu Samhita that are very difficult to accept and can straight up be disturbing. So we have to understand, like we see, the thing is, Manu Samhita is part of Varnashram Dharma, and Varnashram Dharma, from our perspective, we are utilizing Varnashram. It is a Yukta Vairagya principle. So there are things that we accept in Varnashram Dharma that are favorable to our performance of Krishna consciousness, things which are unfavorable. We have to come to the platform of being able to clearly distinguish that which will be favorable and unfavorable. And for that, we really need to hear from the spiritual master a lot. And we should become adept at really churning these purports of Srila Prabhupada. And then when we go to the Manu Samhita, we will be able to read Manu Samhita in light of what Srila Prabhupada said, not in contradiction. Because otherwise it just spins. This is for any of the Puranas and the other things and like that. Upanishads and other things. Okay, anything else? Yes.
Prabhu, a lot of times we'll see that often, some trouble may come about and the disciple may do things that are that cause a disturbance in general in Vaishnava society, and the spiritual master may see this, and the spiritual master may even agree with what the disciple is doing or have his own stance on the whole situation, but he doesn't necessarily reveal that. And that can actually, that can even actually cause confusion amongst the disciple who's in that situation. Although it may seem that if the spiritual master reveals it, maybe it would be beneficial because he's a spiritual master.
It may not be. That's why the spiritual master is not revealing, because there might be circumstances that are beyond our level of understanding as to why he may choose not to reveal it. And that could also be as simple as something that the disciple has to learn this lesson of just agreeing with the spiritual master. Just have to obey. You have to agree. And that's the whole, kind of the theme of what we were discussing, as to when somebody can disagree. It's not. And even then, the Sanat Kumaras, they disagreed on a point which is also, it is allowed in that sense, but even that allowance is only for those who are extremely elevated. But it is there. Yet, the Sanat Kumaras wouldn't disagree with Brahma on philosophical principles, or the nature of how the Supreme Lord should be worshipped, or things like this. So that also a disciple should understand that these exceptions are found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they are there so that we understand what the real platform, or what exalted devotees are, and that they are not actually, such personalities are not people that we should judge with our limited sense of morality or things like that. They are actually so exalted. So these examples are given there, but so that we understand that. And then you have examples like Swayambhuva Manu, which are more relevant to our situation.
Yeah, I like that point that about not just like whimsically coming to like a decision or criticizing, I disagree with this. I think this is wrong. Is that wrong? This is right and this is wrong. And it's really, there's all these different criticisms and all these different things, but when you could easily just go to, because there has to be some qualification, like you said, obviously, to make these kind of distinctions. But rather than like going
The
to
qualification is to be completely independent.
yeah, and so rather than going to like
And the
someone,
truth is, the disciples never actually independent of the spiritual master. So
and they don't go to the spiritual master for these things either, It's because deep down inside, you don't want to go to people who are actually qualified, like maybe senior devotees or a spiritual master, because deep down inside is ultimately just like enviousness, because you know what people are going to say deep down,
Yeah.
but you don't really want to hear that.
and it eats you up from inside. It's just it's very toxic. Anything else? Okay, Matajis. Yes.
I had two, but should I just stick with one?
Go ahead, you can ask.
My first one is, so this letter with Mrs. Sarna's daughters, sometimes the time, place, and circumstances is a little confusing for me. So like Srila Prabhupada's saying, if you're asked to cook meat, they should go away. And
Yes.
you're saying that, it's also to understand if you're still being protected or the person is
Yes.
pious, you should still do that. So then
Yes.
I guess in a situation like that, because I've been instructed often that as a wife, like we're meant to serve our husbands, even if it is such a condition as like.
No. Because then at that point, your Krishna consciousness is destroyed. So that's the point. That, see, when it becomes more than obvious that our Krishna consciousness would become ruined in that situation. And of course, these are decisions that one must take with guidance. But when it becomes obvious to everyone involved that the Krishna consciousness is out, then at that point, it is not recommended to remain there. But in many cases, what happens is the disagreement causes and creates such levels of conflict that it feels that nobody is able to be Krishna conscious. And then we think that the solution is to leave, when actually the solution is to calm down and realize that there needs to be some kind of compromise order. Otherwise, we disagree, we make the situation like we can't be Krishna conscious anymore, we leave only to suffer because we were dependent. In these circumstances, such as what the wife is doing, it is just beyond the ability to rectify. Even then, Srila Prabhupada is saying this, but obviously it goes without saying that there would have to be attempts to rectify the husband. It goes without saying. And when all those attempts fail, and it is directly, extremely detrimental for devotional service, then this becomes the only solution. And what does that mean? That means that the woman, she can't marry again, right? It's a very, Prabhupada makes that point that yes, you can leave if you think that the situation is very difficult, but you can't marry again. And at that point, you have to simply become dependent on Krishna, which requires a very high level of advancement on the part of the woman. And so, therefore, such a decision cannot be taken lightly.
And then my other question was just about providential arrangement, because also free will is still, I kind of understand it, but still don't. But if, like, say a devotee makes a decision or makes a mistake in a situation, but like, how do we understand when it's providential arrangement versus just like the negligence of a devotee?
So, the thing is that it's both. It's both, right? We have to understand that whoever we are around, they are not perfect beings. So they're apt to make some mistakes, especially when it occurs according to their nature. And we have to be tolerant of those. It could be because of their nature, and then there's negligence or whatever. But when it's their nature and they're trying to overcome that, or they're working on it, it will take time. And at that time, in the meantime, you're suffering a little bit, right? And that's providence. It's both. And the thing is, if we can create a Krishna conscious environment, then that devotee will eventually be able to overcome that nature and become a better person. But if we agitate things so bad that they can't develop good qualities and we don't develop good qualities, then where is the solution? So, and on the other hand, even if that devotee doesn't change his nature, you will develop the ability where that doesn't disturb you anymore. This is the amazing process of Krishna consciousness. You don't become disturbed by it. It becomes insignificant for you. Then it's between that devotee and Krishna whether he rectifies it or doesn't rectify it, whatever. But it becomes insignificant.
I guess I'm thinking more so like in an application to myself. Like sometimes in devotional service, I may make a mistake or do something within Krishna consciousness that is contrary to like what I should be doing in devotional service. So understanding like when it's a situation has come about because it's there to teach me a lesson to grow within Krishna consciousness versus when it's...
I mean, of course, when it comes to ourselves, we have to take it that it is our own negligence. We have to consider it our disqualification, and we should try to fix it. That should be our attitude when it comes to actions that are performed by ourselves. Providential arrangement refers to that which is happening outside of us, from others, or by nature's arrangement, or whatever. Okay.
Oh, I just had a question about that verse you pulled up, or might have been a letter. Oh yeah, those verses about having a good son pleases the father, it's good for the father, or something. It's like auspicious for the father, something like that.
Oh, the benefits I was reading?
Yeah. I was wondering, having a good daughter is the same situation or no?
Having the daughter?
Having a good daughter, like, because you were saying, I don't know what the verse said specifically, but speaking about having a nice son, it's good for the parents or something.
Yeah. I mean, generally it's referred to as son, but even a good daughter can definitely benefit her parents as far as Krishna consciousness goes. What we hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam is the word devotee. So this is not gender specific. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted the verses that I can just text it or something, the verses that you were sharing about the reversals and the one about the depression. Could you share those? Okay.
I'll share it on the group. Okay. All right. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.